SubhanAllah, one of the things that we learn from the life of the Prophet ﷺ is that he was always a man of understanding. He would not judge people right away. As human beings, we all make innocent mistakes. And when you make an innocent mistake in life, you feel very, very terrible. Wallah, you have a sense of guilt in your heart. Why? Because you either let someone else down, you were given a responsibility, you let a person down, sometimes you let the family down, sometimes you do something and you feel like, Wallahi, I wish I would not have done it. But yet what happens is that in that case, what do people do at times? Many people feel that by badgering someone, by criticizing someone, yet they understand they're guilty, yet they have a sense of guilt. They know they've done something that is wrong. Yet there'll be people who will come and badger them. Imagine a person got into a car accident. Now a person is sitting on the side of the road, he's worried. He's thinking, what has he done? It was because of his recklessness on the road that he caused harm to someone else. He has this inner guilt in his heart. But if someone came at that time, what would you do in that kind of situation? Would you come to that person and badger that person? Or would you come to that person and say, don't worry, inshallah, everything will be fine? What would you do? As a believer, what we learn from Rasulullah ﷺ is that he will always calm the situation down. Now, let me make this very clear. One is a person does something that is wrong, and they have been told, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, and then they still do something that is wrong, then that person is worthy of criticism. But at that same situation, in that particular situation, you don't badger them. But what if there's an innocent mistake? They did not intend to do it. Then in that case, we find Rasulullah ﷺ, he will always be very compassionate. Let me give you, today inshallah, to explain this concept to you, I'm going to share with you 3 different stories from the life of Rasulullah ﷺ. The very first story is a story about Khaybar. On the return, on the way back from Khaybar, Rasulullah ﷺ was very tired. He set a camp, and he told his entire camp that go ahead and go to sleep, take some rest. He asked that who's going to stay awake at night and make sure that we wake up for Salatul Fajr. Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu took that responsibility. He says, Ya Rasulullah, I will take up that responsibility. Now, at that time, what Bilal radiallahu anhu did was that he had 2 choices. Either I engage in salat, or let me just sit down, let me also take some rest. So he thought, like, you know what, let me lean against the animal facing east, so that as soon as I see some light in the sky, I know it's a time for Salatul Fajr, I can wake up the Prophet ﷺ and I can wake up the entire army. SubhanAllah, he leaned against the animal and he also went to sleep. In the morning, what woke up Rasulullah ﷺ? The rays of the sun. And it woke everyone up. And everyone is getting upset. Bilal, where's Bilal? And they went to Bilal, what happened? You were given a responsibility. Now I ask you, all of us here sitting over here, and I ask you this question. When Bilal woke up, he knew right away that he had done something that is wrong. He was given a responsibility. And he did not just let down anyone. He let down who? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is no pain that is more hurtful than letting down Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And everyone began to criticize Bilal radiallahu anhu. And they're asking Bilal, what happened? And he says, I don't know what happened. I fell asleep. And they were not sufficient. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called Bilal. And he says, Bilal, what happened? And he says, Ya Rasulullah, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a human being. I leaned against the animal and I fell asleep, and this is the situation. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam realized that this was not an intentional mistake made by Bilal radiallahu ta'ala an. This is not a habitual practice of Bilal radiallahu ta'ala an. It happened once, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told everyone that you are not to say anything to Bilal radiallahu ta'ala an. And he himself sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not say a single word to Bilal radiallahu ta'ala an. Why? Because Bilal understands. He has this inner guilt in his heart that he let down the entire army of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Later on, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went to another place. They performed Salatul Fajr, and that is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned his very well-known hadith that whenever you forget to pray Salat, you pray the Salat as soon as you remember. So meaning that even if let's say we go to sleep and we miss salat, as soon as you wake up, as soon as you remember, you pray salat. Next story, just to give you this, once again, this idea that how Rasulullah ﷺ understood human needs or the human nature. This was the Battle of Mu'tah. Rasulullah ﷺ, he's telling everyone that I will not be able to be part of this expedition. And he said that the one who's going to be in charge is Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu ta'ala an. If Zayd dies, the next one in charge is Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. If Ja'far dies, Abdullah ibn Rawaha is going to be in charge. And at that time, they all went. Now, how many people are we talking about here amongst the Muslims? We're talking about approximately 3,000 people. Just 3,000 Muslims. Standing up against who? The Roman army. And they consisted of 200,000 people. Look at the disparity. There is no way that if you saw 3,000 looking at 200,000, of course anyone would get scared. At that time, they began to contemplate, what do we do? Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiallahu anhu stood up and he said that whatever you're fearing, this is what you wanted. I mean, you're fearing your shahada, you're fearing your martyrdom, but that's why we're here for. We're willing to give our life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. So I say that instead of sending a letter to the Prophet ﷺ and finding out what we should do, let's just move forward and let's face the enemy. So they got there and they began to fight. And just like Rasulullah ﷺ had predicted, one by one they all three passed away. First, Zayd radiallahu anhu passed away. Then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, he passed away. Then after that, Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anh, he took hold of the flag of Islam. He also passed away. And during that time, they began to wonder, what should we do next? Who's the next commander-in-chief? And they all decided that the next one should be Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh. By the way, in the same battle, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, remember that Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anh, though he has narrated the most ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he became a Muslim, or he began to live and stay in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only 3 years before the Prophet alaihi wasallam passed away. That's it. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was not there throughout the entire life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came and joined Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the last 3 years of his life. Yet despite that, he has narrated the most ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What we learn is that when Abu Hurairah, because he was not there in the battle of Badr, he wasn't there in the battle of Uhud, he wasn't there in the battle of trenches, when he saw that he's part of 3,000 up against 200,000, even he began to shake. And at that time, another Sahabi by the name of Thabit ibn al-Arqam, he came to Abu Hurairah and he says, "Are you scared?" And he says, "Yes, of course I'm scared." He says, "I know you're not part of Badr. In Badr, we were only 313 against 1,000. Yet, alhamdulillah, we were able to survive. In Uhud, we were outnumbered. In the battle of trenches, we were outnumbered." So he began to console Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh that don't worry, inshallah, everything will be taken care of. Now, fast forward to the point where Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh, now he's the commander-in-chief. What he did was that he made a small tweak to the army. What he did was that the Roman army were they had recognized all the people who were part of the Muslim battalion in the front, but they did not know who was in the back. So what Khalid radiallahu anhu did was, he took the army from the front and he put them to the back and he switched it up. So the back ones were coming to the front, the front ones went back, and then he switched the right side to the left side and the left side to the right side. He switched up everything. So the next morning, when the Romans woke up and they began to see new faces, they never saw these same faces. They thought that the Muslims have gained reinforcement from Medina. So what happened was that day they began to shiver. And as a result of losing confidence in themselves, that day only 12 Muslims lost their lives, but the Romans lost a huge number of people amongst their army. That night, Khalid radiallahu anhu, he understands that we're going to get wiped out. We've already lost so many people. So slowly and gradually he began to backtrack and he went back to Medina. Now when he went back to Medina, the people began to criticize him. They began to criticize him that you fled the situation. You fled the situation and you should have stayed there. In fact, the books of Sirah mention that women came out and they began to throw dirt on the Muslim army that you fled the situation. When they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallam was given the whole, report of what happened, Rasulullah sallam did not say a single word. You know why? Because Rasulullah sallam understands that situation. He understands that they had already lost so many people. He already understands that Khalid bin Walid had just become a Muslim not long ago. And yes, he has this nature of being a fierce warrior and so forth. But at the same time, looking at how hurt the Muslims are, the Prophet ﷺ did not say a single word because he understands the situation. Third story. This is an interesting story that we find from Fath Makkah. This is when the Prophet ﷺ is coming to Makkah for the conquest of Makkah. Rasulullah ﷺ told everyone, whoever stays inside their house is safe. If whoever stays inside the house of Abu Sufyan, they are safe. Now what happened was that Rasulullah ﷺ is coming forward, and you have some of these arrogant chieftains of the Quraysh. They said that, you know what, we're going to go out and fight Rasulullah ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ is not coming to fight. But of course, our deen has taught us that when someone is coming at you with a sword, or someone is coming at you to harm you, you defend yourself. So the Prophet so the books of Sirah mention that some of these arrogant Qurayshi leaders, they got together at a place called Al-Khandama. And there was another person who joined them by the name of Hamas bin Qais. Now Hamas bin Qais, he had a lot of weapons in his house. And he knew that the Muslims were coming. So he began to sharpen his armor, and began to sharpen his weapons and so forth. So his wife asked him, "What are you doing?" And he's saying that I'm getting ready for this army. I'm going to teach them a very good lesson. So his wife said that you do understand how powerful the Muslim army is. They're not just a walk in the park. You can't just walk right over them. They're very fierce. And at that time, he arrogantly said that you watch, I'll prove to you that I will bring some of them back to you to serve you. Meaning, I'll bring some of them back and they will become your slaves. They will serve you. He was arrogant. So he also joined some of these arrogant Quraysh leaders at Al-Khandama. Now there the Muslims came and they were charging at the Muslims, so the Muslims fought back. And when the Muslims fought back, many of these Qurayshi leaders and some of the others, they lost their lives and they began to retreat. At that time, many others, there was Ikramah ibn Abi Jahl and some others such as Safwan ibn Umayyah and Suhail ibn Amr and so forth, they began to retreat. So what happened was that Hamas bin Qais also came running back home. So his wife said that, what happened? I thought you were going to bring me back some slaves. What happened? And he says that, no man, they're very fierce. I could not do anything. So what happened was that someone came to Rasulullah sallam that this is fighting that is taking place within the hudud of haram. Let's try to stop this. Rasulullah sallam said, indeed, let's try to stop this. So what happened was that he told one of his companions that, and look at the instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He realized that let's stop all this. So he sent a man to Khalid bin Walid and to tell him to give Khalid the message that stop the killing. Stop the killing. That's what he said. Now this man, he did not pay attention to the instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he thought that in this atmosphere of war, in battle and so forth, and now they're coming at us, perhaps what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant is that kill each one of them. You understand? So he went to Khalid bin Walid and he said that these are the instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Basically, he gave wrong instructions to Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu. And as a result, 70 more people died. 70 more people died. Now the Prophet ﷺ is very upset about this. That I gave this man a very clear instruction that do not tell Khalid bin Walid that no more killing taking place. And he went and he says, now at that time Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu came back. And the Prophet ﷺ got really upset. He says, Khalid, I told you no more killing. And you killed 70 more people. And he says that, Ya Rasulullah, the message that I got was that you told the man, whoever delivered the message to me, that you just keep on continuously killing. And he says, no, I did not say that. So he called the man back. And he says that, what did you tell Khalid bin Walid? And he says that I told him exactly what you said. And Khalid said, no, you told me to continue the killing. That is when the Prophet ﷺ told that man, I told you this, and you told Khalid bin Walid this. You gave him wrong instructions. That is when the man realized that, oh yes, I gave wrong instructions. Now, of course, this was a very expensive instruction that he gave. I mean, many people lost their lives. But at that time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he realized that this man, in the thick of all the battle that is taking place, in the thick of all these people attacking Islam and attacking Muslims, and they're trying to fight back and defend themselves, he misunderstood the instructions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he delivered the wrong instruction to Khalid bin Walid that cost the lives of so many other people. What did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? He did not he never yelled at the Sahabi. He never got really upset. And all that he did was that he showed that he was really upset. When the Prophet ﷺ shows that he's really upset, the Sahabi gets the message. He understands the demeanor and the mizaj of Rasulullah ﷺ, that if the Prophet ﷺ is putting his head down and he's so upset, he knows, he has this inner guilt that I did something that is wrong. I really, really messed up. He has that guilt. But at the same time, Rasulullah ﷺ realizes that if I badger this companion right now, there's no point. Whatever has been done has been done. So that is why we learn from Rasulullah ﷺ, and there are many other stories like this, that when there are people in your life who make innocent mistakes, someone in your family, someone amongst your friends, someone lets you down, and they do it truly in an innocent way, they did not meant to do it, it happened unfortunately, there's no point of badgering other people. Let's learn from Rasulullah ﷺ that how he would deal with innocent mistakes. And if we can treat people this way, inshallah, once again, people have a heart, people have an understanding, people have an aql, that if I did something that is wrong, I need to own up to my mistakes. So inshallah, we develop this nature and this akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whenever these kind of situations happen, inshallah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the demeanor, the akhlaq of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
إن المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والقانتين والقانتات والصادقين والصادقات والصابرين والصابرات والخاشعين والخاشعات والمتصدقين والمتصدقات والصائمين والصائمات والحافظين فروجهم والحافظات والذاكرين الله كثيرا والذاكرات أعد الله لهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما.